Getting Lost. Season 1 The Weight of Empty Places. Fanny sat on the worn wooden bench beneath the gnarled branches of an old tree. Its leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The park was quiet, but not the quiet he remembered. It was the kind of silence that felt thick, almost suffocating. He watched a pair of sparrows flit near a puddle, their small shadows dancing on the cracked pavement. This was the spot where they used to share lunches, a ritual carved out in the soft hours of afternoons that now felt hollow. The table where they sat was empty, the laughter and warmth replaced by a coldness that wrapped itself around Fanny like the hoodie draped loosely over his shoulders. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small barred notebook. The pages inside were worn, edges curling from years of folding and unfolding, like the memories inside them. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the outline of sentences he had scribbled long ago. I am still here, but not the same. His gaze drifted to the corner cafe down street, the place where he had first held her hand faulty from somehow. The windows were fogged, and the shelves had been rearranged. The old novels they used to browse were gone, replaced by never titles with unfamiliar spines. It was as if time had rewritten the space, erasing the imprint they once left behind. Fanny rose slowly and began to walk toward the bookstore. Each step was deliberate, as if he was walking through the corridors of his own mind. The street smelled faintly of rain, a scent he hadn't noticed until now. It mingled with the distant aroma of freshly ground coffee, stirring something deep inside. Inside the bookstore, silence pressed against the walls like a tangible thing. Fanny ran his fingers over the spine of books, searching not for title, but for a fragment of himself. He remembered how once, between the pages of dusty poetry collection, she had whispered words of comfort during stormy nights. Now, the words felt distant, fragile, like shards of glass he wasn't sure he wanted to pick up. He pulled out his notebook again and wrote, "Places hold piece of us. We don't always realize we're left behind." The pen hovered for a moment before he added, "These places, they keep versions of me I no longer recognize." The afternoon sun dipped low, casting long shadows through the narrow aisles. Fanny lingered by a window seat where they used to sit side by side, reading in companionable silence. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, her unkempt, eye-shadowed, hoodie pulled tight. He thought about the weight of empty places, not just the absence of her, but the emptiness of space that once felt like home, now drenched in the language of loss. His heart, a vessel buried by silence, saw the shore he could no longer see. Back on the street, he stopped at a crosswalk. Cars passed, people hurried by, but Fanny, Fanny's words slowed to a fragile stillness. He opened his notebook and read the lines he had written that morning. "I'm still here, but not the same." Perhaps, he thought, he wasn't searching for what he lost. Perhaps he was searching for the part of himself that still dared to exist beyond the ache. He folded the notebook carefully and slipped it back into his bag. The night was coming, and with it, a quiet promise that the weight of empty place was not the end, but the beginning of something unseen. Corridors between who I was and who I am. The morning lights filtered softly through the cafe's faux windows, casting hazy patterns on the wooden tables worn smooth by years of careless elbows and hurried coffee cups. Fanny sat alone in a corner, a silent observer framed by the hum of muted conversation and the clatter of ceramic. A familiar voice broke through the hum. Fanny, is that really you? His old friend's eyes, widen wide, a mixture of surprise and something else. An unspoken question that hung awkwardly between them. They embraced briefly, but the warmth felt fragile, like a thin layer of ice over a deeper, colder current. I thought you and her were still together, the friend said, eyes searching Fanny's face. Fanny smiled faintly, a ghost of the past flickering in his chest. He shrugged, words, words caught in the haze of memories too complex to unpack. Sometimes he thought pain was a language too heavy for speech. Later, he wandered to the library, a place of quiet sanctuary. The scent of aging paper and polished wood wrapped around him like a fragile armor. There, among stacks of poems and forgotten stories, I noticed a girl, a stranger, engrossed in a thin book of verse. Their eyes met briefly. She offered a tentative smile. I like poems that are angry, but quiet, she said softly. Her words struck a chord deep within him, echoing the turmoil he kept locked in. Fanny nodded, feeling the weight of her understanding. Even in their brief encounter, she was a mirror reflecting the part of himself he had hidden away. Part he was only beginning to face. He pulled out his notebook, scribbling, I'm not just mourning what I lost. I grieve in the way I loved, how I give piece of myself away, never quite whole. Flipping through the pages, he found old poems he had written for her. The words felt foreign now, like someone else's memories disguised as his own. There was a sting in recognizing the distance between who he was and who he had become. The corridors between past and present twisted like the shelves around him, confusing, endless. Yet, in this maze, Fanny found a sliver of light, one of self-reflection, short of truth that demanded reckoning. He thought, perhaps losing her was also losing a version of himself, one he wasn't ready to say goodbye to. But maybe, he realized, it was time to stop chasing shadows and start understanding the shape of the man he was becoming. The afternoon waned, and Fanny folded his notebook closed. His heart was heavier, but also quieter. A stillness not born from numbness, but from tentative acceptance. He stepped outside, the late sun casting long shadows that stretched toward an uncertain horizon. Losing isn't living. The room was dim, cloaked in the soft amber glow of lone lamp. Fanny sat cross-legged on the floor, a small mirror propped against the wall reflecting the contours of a face he scarcely recognized. His fingers reached up to brush a loose strand of hair, failing past tired eyes. Memories came, unbidden, snapshots of laughter in rain-soaked streets, whispered promise beneath trembling stars, the warmth of her hand that once fit perfectly in his. Its memory was a fragile thread pulling at the fabric of the resolve. With every recollection, Fanny's hand moved almost instinctively to his notebook. Words spilled out like a delicate petals falling on still water. Short poems, moment capture between heartbeats. In the silence between us, echoes of you linger, a soft ache, a fading light. He wrote again after a pause, the pen scratching gently. Your shadows dances in the corners of my mind, familiar and strange, a ghost I can't chase. These poems weren't a place of place, weren't a place or a place of regret. They were offered into the part of himself still entangled in love after marriage, after image. Each stanza, a quiet confession, a bridge between who had he was and who he was becoming. Fanny looked back at the mirror. The man's swearing bed was scared but unbroken. The long hair, once an emblem of rebellion, was now a testament to time's passage, unfinished stories woven into every strand. He reached for the skirters resting nearby, hesitating for a moment, not out of anger or surrender, but out of care. He trimmed the tip slowly, mindfully, as if tending to a wounded garden. A fresh page awaited in his notebook. He wrote, "To care is not to forget, but to nurture the broken roots so new blooms might grow." The night deepened, and Fanny's breathing steadied. He found solace in the act of writing, in the ritual of facing himself through words. Before closing the notebook, he penned the final line on the last page. "Maybe I don't need to find myself, only forgive the one I've become." When dawn crept through the curtains, Fanny stepped aside, without a destination, but with a lioness that hadn't been there before. The weight of losing was still present, but it no longer chained him. It walked, he walked into the morning, a man no longer lost, just quietly learning the way back home to himself. Finding peace in the uncharted, the tree and the wind. The city's noise had dimmed into a distant murmur, replaced by the slow exhale of twilight's calm. Fanny walked without purpose, his steps carrying him further than usual, beyond the familiar streets cluttered with memories and shadows. He found himself standing at the edge of a forgotten park, an island of quiet that felt both foreign and necessary. Before him stood in the ancient tree, towering and solitary against the vast sky. His trunk was thick and nailed, bark cracked like the lines of the face that hadn't seen too many storms. The tree's branches stretched wide, some bare, others still holding onto the last few leaves, thin, golden, and brittle, trembling like fragile promises in the cool haze. Fanny hesitated, then knelt down at the tree's base, feeling the rough earth press against his palms. The soil was cool, grounding, and real. The air carried the faint scent of damp leaves and moss, the quiet perfume of endings and beginnings. The wind stirred, soft but persistent, flowing through the branches. Slowly the leaves began to loosen their grip. They didn't fall all at once. Instead, they danced, twisting, turning, caught in a delicate spiral as if bidding farewell to a chapter long closed. Fanny's breath caught in his throat, watching the leaves let go. He felt the tightness in his chest loosen just a little. For so long he had clung to memories. Her laughter, the warmth of her touch, the silent moments that had once felt like home. He had guarded them fiercely, afraid that releasing them would mean losing himself. But here, beneath this ancient tree, he saw a different truth. Strength was not in holding on, but in the courage to release. His thoughts drifted back, moments replaying like fragments of fragile film. Her smile, soft and radiant in the morning light, the way her eyes caught in the sun, like they held entire skies, the quiet goodbyes wrapped in unsaid words. Its memory felt like a leaf itself, fragile and trembling on the edge of falling. Tears blurred his visions, warm and unexpected. They were not tears of defeat for surrender, of finally allowing the pain to breathe, to be seen, to begin to heal. Fanny reached into the pocket of his hoodie, fingers trembling as they closed around a well-worn notebook. He pulled it free, the familiar weight comforting in his hand. He opened to a blank page and hesitated. The pen hovered as he searched for the words his heart needed. Then, slowly, deliberately, he wrote. I held on too tightly, afraid to fall, afraid to lose, but like leaves in autumn's breath, some things must go, not lost, but transformed, carried gently by the wind. I'm learning to stand, not by clinging, but by letting go. With each word, he felt a quiet shift inside, as if the pen traced the path out of the darkness and into a fragile light. The wind brushed softly against his face, cool and persistent, as if the tree itself was breathing with him, sharing his ancient wisdom. The scent of earth and fading leaves filled his lungs, grounding him in the present. He pressed the notebook against his chest, a silent vow taking root in the space between pain and hope. For the first time, in what he felt like forever, Fanny did not feel broken or lost. He felt rooted, not in the past, but in the strength of accepting what had been and what was still possible. The sky above deepened into a canvas of indigo and violet, stars beginning to pierce the fading light. The tree's silhouette stood firm and steadfast, witness to time endless cycles. Fanny rose slowly. The earth cooled beneath his fingers, the weight on his shoulders lighter than before. The path ahead was still uncertain, strewn with questions that had no immediate answer, but the burden of holding on too tightly had lifted. He took a deep breath, the crisp evening air filling his lungs, steadying him. Before turning away, he wrote one last poem on the edge of the page, quite mentor to carry forward. To fall, to fall is not the thrill, it's not in jail. To fall is not a fail, but the trust the winds embrace in every endless breath. I find the seed of grace, tucking the notebook carefully back into his pocket. Fanny glanced once more at the tree. Silent, strong, and unyielding, like the tree he would stand tall through loss, nourished by the courage to let go and promise of what could grow anew. And as he stepped away from the park, the night wrapping around him like a soft cloak, a gentle peace kettled in his chest, a peace born not from forgetting but from forgiveness on the past of the self he had been, of the self he was beginning to be. For the first time in a long time, Fanny felt free.